This episode was taped in October 2023. Some references to current events and content may be outdated. Star Wars: A New Hope is arguably the most influential science fiction movie of all time. But did you know that it was not always set up to be a commercial success? That's right, this film was originally a total disaster, with early screenings simply referring to it as a mess. So then how was this film saved? And how many of its problems still shine through today? Today we find out on this episode of The Return of the Movie. Hello everyone, and welcome back to The Return of the Movie. I am Ben, and today I am with our guest, Cali from Melanin Muses, aka at Enigma in Me 23. Also, Tessa Darksider from Urban Force, and this is our first installment of Star Wars The Original Trilogy discussions. First of all, Cali, how are you doing?
I am doing pretty great because this is one of my favorite things to talk about. So thank you for bringing me on.
It's funny because we did, when we were working as ABBC, our smaller production company, we did an interview with you and everyone else at Urban Force, and I got to really dig in to everyone's history with Star Wars from a fan perspective, and it was honestly really adorable, really inspiring. And if you haven't checked out Urban Force yet, please do so. They're awesome. We have links in the description for you guys. We're talking about Star Wars, specifically Episode 4, A New Hope. So I must ask, and this is a little bit of a leading question because I kind of already know the answer, what's your personal experience with this film?
I was in Georgia visiting family. And mind you, I'd never seen any of the Star Wars films before this point. So I just see these things on TV and I'm like, what's going on here? There are things flying and it's sandy and they're things running around. I'm very confused by this, but I watched it anyway because my family was really into it at the time. At first, I didn't understand what was going on, but then I got into it because I was like, is that a sword? It's lighting up. It looks so cool. And that was kind of my introduction to the Star Wars franchise in general. Because
I know that a lot of people of our generation, our entry point is specifically Phantom Menace. Mm-hmm. When people of our age, the 96 to above crowd, were born, that was the first big Star Wars thing to hit the block. Mm-hmm. And I feel I don't know what it was like beforehand. I don't know if that sparked a mass resurgence or if there was already a lot of momentum going on with the franchise at that point.
Weirdly enough, I don't think there was. I think it was such a small niche community that enjoyed Star Wars because if I remember correctly, it wasn't very popular at the time. It was a big thing within sci-fi communities.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it was just kind of like a nerd thing.
For us, it was the big old CRTV, that big old boxy thing, or that small old boxy thing. And eventually my dad was like, the kids are taking an interest in this. And he was like, okay, I have all three on box set, and he just put them on. I remember thinking to myself, how did they do that? How was this ever filmed? It all looks so good. One important thing to note as we're going into these films is George Lucas explicitly has stated that these are made for kids. Yeah. I will say the idea of what's made for kids versus made for adults has shifted since the time this was made. Because it seemed like back in the day you could put something that had a lot more substance behind it and say it was made for kids. It's the idea that a good kids film is just a family-friendly film that is good.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, nowadays, thanks to really, really bad business practices in Hollywood, if someone says something is made for kids, there is an immediate artistic dismissal.
Yeah, a lot of the TV shows that we grew up watching had a lot of adult themes, but they were packaged in a way that was family friendly, if that made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, even when you think about the theme of Star Wars overall, there's a lot of politics involved in that.
On my rewatch of this, I was completely floored by oh, if you're keeping track of everything, like, first of all, Disney has, like, expanded upon the universe in a really great way where now you can understand the subtleties of the politics being discussed. It feels like Andor is based off of a very brief conversation that Tarkin had with Vader in the first 2 minutes of the film.
Yes.
Which, to me, is, like, a marvelous example of how the world building was done. Mm-hmm. One thing I don't like about the world building, and you and I both had this moment when we were in our pre-show. So the droids we establish are sentient. They have emotion.
Yes.
Why is Anakin okay with slave buying these droids?
So,
excuse me, Luke. Although technically Anakin hates slavery in the later stuff, so he's probably less cool with it.
Okay. So it's so funny that you mentioned that. Because my partner and I, when rewatching this film, we were looking at the difference between R2-D2 and C-3PO.
Yeah.
And how they emote, how they interact with the world around them, and how different their personalities are.
Yeah.
So when you look at R2-D2, he's much more adventurous and kind of mission-driven.
Yes.
In that when Leia gives him his mission to go and find Obi-Wan Kenobi, that's what he does. He just gets on the pod and zips out of there and goes immediately through the desert to go find this person.
Yeah.
That we find out later on in the prequel trilogies that he's known.
Yeah.
He was aware of him. But C-3PO was not as keen on this. In fact, he was fearful the entire time and dismissive of R2-D2's mission and wanted nothing to do with any of this. In fact, there was a lot of disdain between the two of them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So when thinking about those personalities, like, why would a droid have fear? And it was funny because I was thinking about that and I'm like, well, he's programmed that way, right? And my partner was saying, well, no, I have a theory, a very weird theory, that because Anakin created C-3PO when he was a child, he programmed him the same way he was feeling when he built him.
Oh.
So his childlike fear was put into C-3PO's design. Hence why he's so dismissive of people, why he's so, resentful of R2-D2, why he's just very angry and upset most of the time.
Yeah.
He acts like a child.
It's so weird because we don't know what George Lucas planned versus what he didn't. And I do think that George Lucas, as a undeniably fantastic big picture person, he created this world. The world building in Star Wars is undeniably really good.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about Legends. I'm literally just talking about, if you only look at the main films, the amount of world building that happens just in passive conversation really makes the universe feel full. And I don't 100% know if that was planned for Anakin to build C-3PO. I don't know if it was like half member berries, for lack of a better term, just like kind of harkening on nostalgia for those first films. Or if it was an active choice. Because when you think about it, C-3PO is one of the most interesting characters because he was literally built by Vader.
Yeah.
And just everyone glosses over that. It's
the whole time.
Like, George Lucas didn't think of it at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to be okay with that. But at the same time, when something lines up that well on character analysis, we have to wonder, okay, did George Lucas make character decisions for Anakin based off of knowing that they built C-3PO? So there's like a bunch of really good ways to sort of inform character that are based off of that.
Yeah.
That's really, I'm sorry. That's like, I would also be floored if someone said that to me.
Yeah, and I looked at him, I'm like, have you been just like stewing on that? And he's like, it just popped into my head. I don't know. I just thought about it.
Well,
and I'm like, no, that's a pretty awesome theory to go with.
For me, like, one of the things that I find really strange about this, with as far as the droids are concerned, is it feels like in this first film, because it feels like in later installments, especially the Disney Plus stuff, people acknowledge that the droids are completely sentient, have feelings.
Yes.
But it makes the buying of droids actually very strange in this first film, where at the time we probably wouldn't have batted an eye, but because of the world building that has happened later, I now feel really gross about them buying C-3PO.
It's so crazy to me because just in my rewatch, scavengers.
I nearly said sand people. That's wrong.
Nope, the other one.
The cute ones. The cute people that steal the droids.
Yes, and that's the key thing here, is they pick them up from the sand, like under the guise of kind of rescuing them, and put trackers on them, put all kinds of like things into them so they can't escape and they can control them, and then they just sell them off without like understanding their background, their history, whether or not they had previous owners, and that's gross to say in its own right.
Yeah.
But just kind of when you see the scene where where Luke and his uncle are purchasing them and evaluating them for very specific purchase, and I'm kind of like, ew, this is like an
gross.
auction. Oh, I don't like it. And then how C-3PO's trying to justify his purchase.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my, and then he was trying to leave R2-D2 behind initially because he's a jerk sometimes. But it was just kind of crazy to me that his usefulness is what made him be purchased.
And I feel like this is an oversight in world building that has happened 20, 40 years later. Because at the time, if I watched this in isolation in the beginning, I would be like, oh, they're programmed to an extent and he's a language robot. He doesn't actually have a personality. But then after everything that's come out on the Disney Plus shows, honestly, everything with the Mandalorian, the first 2 chapters, I'm like, okay, they're programmed, but they have personality, they have sentience. This is 100% a thing.
Yeah.
So this is now weird, and I think we can all say that this was just an oversight. I just think that it's a silly little thing that when you watch is a little weird.
Yes.
Unfortunately, on rewatching this, I do have to say, this is not my favorite Star Wars film. I loved it as a kid, but on rewatch, I think this is probably the slowest in the original trilogy.
I would agree with you there. And it's because the beginning is a lot of... Now, would that justify his exposition with everything?
I would say so, because we don't actually meet Luke until a solid 20 minutes into the film.
Yeah.
Which is, that's our main character. And it's this really strange thing where in Act 1, which is easily the slowest part, it takes a solid hour of the film, I would say, maybe a little bit less.
Yeah.
We are spending time just getting, honestly, with these droids. We're getting a lot of world building. We're getting what honestly could be cut down into a very slim, they're with the princess, they get the mission, they crash on the planet, they meet Luke.
Yeah.
That's technically speaking, in order to get that done quickly, it's only 3 story beats. Mm-hmm. And it was closer to, I think, 7 because there's the invasion. Mm-hmm. They get the plans and escape. They are deserted. They split up.
Yep.
They are then found by the Sand People, and then they are then sold to Luke.
Yes.
So it's technically 6 story beats before we actually reach our main character, which a story beat, it can take any amount of time in a movie script. The usual sort of thought on this is there should be roughly the amount of story beats as there are pages. And what that means is some of your story beats take a really long time to happen, but others are really, really fast. So it really just kind of comes down to both the editing and screenwriting in order to ensure this. And this is kind of where I'm going to tell you something about Star Wars as we go through the sort of plot of this film. This film was nearly a fucking disaster. It nearly was, I believe, when Spielberg first saw it, and it essentially what was just a small showing to kind of figure out where the direction of the film was going. Mm-hmm. He said it was one of the worst things that he'd ever seen. So originally it took even longer for us to meet Luke. And where this all comes down, and I'm going to put some grace on her name right now. Marcia Lukas, George Lucas's original wife.
Hey, Ben from post-production here with a quick redactment. The spelling Marcia is indeed not Marcia, as I previously thought, but Marcia, as I quickly learned while editing this video with Abraham. So, redaction for the rest of the podcast. If I say Marcia, I do mean Marcia. I will not allow that mistake to be unclear. Whoops.
At the time of this, who was the editor, is the reason why this movie is really, really fucking good. Because she's the one that trimmed all the fat and got it down to what it needs to be. And when we talk about Act 3, I'll blow your fucking mind because she did the most insane shit. at that point. Yeah, it just takes a while for us to like actually meet Luke in this.
Yes.
And then technically speaking, Act 1 goes on until they leave Tatooine.
Yes. Because that was a complete like motivation shift that happened.
It's the inciting incident.
Yes.
So the idea is that and it takes over a third of the film for Luke to have his inciting incident is a really good way to put it, because he learns about everything from Obi-Wan, the wise old man, and like your normal hero's journey, and then he denies his call to action, and then his parental figures are slaughtered, and he follows his call to action, that's the actual point where the movie starts picking up, because before then it is a lot of exposition, but it's also a lot of George Lucas just put a lot of points that you had to get to in order for it to make sense for Luke to leave.
Yes. Okay, because we knew initially that Luke wanted to leave. He wanted to leave the farm.
Yeah.
So that he could go to school to be with his classmates.
Yeah.
But his uncle needed him to stay on the farm for one more year for one more harvest because they were short farmhands. Yeah. Which was another reason they purchased the droids to begin with. Was to help with the workload on the farm. Yeah. And Luke was upset about that. He didn't want to stay. He wanted to go. He did have like the sense of adventure. Yeah. But it was a very pointed sense. It was very generic. Well, it's calling.
Yeah, it wasn't like he wanted to go he wanted to instantly be part of the rebellion. He wanted to like essentially just be like, I want to leave town. I've been stuck here all the time, Grandpa. Right. And he just kind of wants what every other kid his age would want. Like a safe sense of adventure, not an immediate like, I'm probably gonna die tomorrow because I'm doing some crazy shit.
I think one of the funnier parts that kind of showed where Luke's, I guess, abilities were at the time was when he went after R2-D2, when he went into the desert to go find Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah. And when they get accosted by the Sand People, and the guy just takes the thing and starts attacking Luke, and Luke is just rolling around trying to get out of the way. Yeah. He's not doing anything to defend himself. He's just evading because he doesn't know how.
Which for me is like honestly one of the coolest things about this, because when you think about the rest of the movies in this trilogy, Luke's a badass. Yeah. But in this first film, it's really hard to notice like, oh, this is a completely different Luke at this point. This is not the Luke that we end up knowing and loving, especially like in the second film. By the end of the second film, he's absurdly strong. But in this beginning, he's coming from a really humble point, which I think makes us forget that this movie was not always like an action film. It was like just straight up a classic hero's journey. There was some action in there, but the action set pieces were actually not that big. Yeah. It was predominantly a space opera. Yeah. Which I think is like one of those things where we just kind of look at some movies through nostalgia glasses and don't really realize what the movie actually was until you go back and look at it a little bit more critically.
Yeah. And I thought that was a really interesting transition from watching Luke be this humble farmhand type child, yeah. And who had to grow up really quickly when his parental figures were slain, and then he has to go on this journey into space where he's never been. He's never left the farm, and now he's going out into the universe.
Yeah, and it's funny because even Act 2 in my mind is it's better, but it's still a little bit of a slog. It takes a while for like us to meet Han, and then most importantly, Act 2 only actually picks up once you're on the Death Star with them. That's the part. That's the part where the movie becomes a like you are sitting down and you are intently watching. Yes. Because everything else up until that point is really just more political stuff, which I'm like, okay, this might be a little bit too much for us to do. There's a little bit too much exposition going on now, of all places, which I genuinely don't know how to feel about. I will say there are some fun things about how this section was edited, though. So a lot of the part were like right up before they're meeting Han, where they're trying to avoid like getting spotted in town. Yeah. Is actually rewinded footage, because the way that George Lucas shot it didn't have any stakes to the situation. So there's one scene in particular where the R2D2 and C3PO go behind a door and it closes. And then the guards run by.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, it was just the guards run by, and then R2D2 and C3PO come out of that door.
Oh.
So you don't actually know, so you're not actually invested in the scene because you don't realize that they can even get caught in that moment.
Okay.
Up until the point that it happens.
Gotcha.
So that's a really minor example. There's also, there is some debate about who shot first as well.
Yes.
And that was originally, I firmly believe that edited that to specifically make Han seem like he was dangerous.
Yes.
So that you would have higher tension throughout the rest of the film.
Exactly. Because again, when we think about a rogue, they're not trustworthy people.
Yeah.
They're not people that you can rely on to kind of watch your back when danger happens. They're out for their own, and that's it. So I think that was the theme that was trying to be established with Han's character, is that he's here for the money. You pay him to do the job, he gets his money, he's on his way. And they tried really hard to push that narrative throughout the film, but I think in this particular,
in the original hit, the shootout between him and Gitto,
cantina scene. Mm-hmm.
Because the big issue is, if you think that Han is like actually has a heart of gold the entire time, you'll 100% believe that he'll come back to save everything in the end.
Exactly.
So there's no actual stakes throughout the film unless Han shoots first.
Exactly.
Which is, and I know that people debate it all the time about his character, but you have to remember that originally his character was supposed to be detestable, and then his arc throughout the film was that he became somewhat loyal.
Mm-hmm.
Both of us watched the version on Disney Plus, and I will say they edited the scene again so that they both fired simultaneously to try and nail that home, but not have Han be a scumbag.
Hi, this is Ben from post-production. So while we were editing this, we noticed something fucking weird. Just look at Han's neck in this clip. Just look at it. It's very interesting, and for audio listeners, I do apologize. You'll have to go to YouTube for this, but yeah, it does not move naturally. Thanks, Disney Plus.
I wanted to mention really quickly, like as we're kind of listing through some of the characters and how they initially present versus how they are toward the end of the trilogy. Even Leia. Like, Leia was presented initially as the damsel in distress, which was a common trope within adventure films at that time. So when they're in the hallway and being shot out by the stormtroopers and trying to find a way out, and she just grabs the gun and shoots the vent to go into the trash receptacle. Yeah. Like, that was such a subversion of our expectations of her in that moment. Yeah. Like, she took charge. And it was just really interesting to see because, of course, that you don't expect the damsel to be the one saving everybody else.
For me, I feel like a lot of Leia specifically in this film is even when she is the damsel in distress, you can tell that she's not gonna fucking fold.
Yeah, she's fighting tooth and nail the whole time.
Like, there's an entire scene where there's like implied torture between her and Vader and that like random circular machine.
Yeah,
and
I was like, I don't.
It's like, I don't like this. And she didn't fucking budge, and she was snarky about it the second that they took her out of the jail cell. Yeah, like she's a badass the entire time, and I feel like now we all certainly recognize this. We're all like, Stan Leia. This is the Leia Stan account. At the time, though, I'm definitely like feeling like this was not a normal character. Yeah. Before we go into discussing Act 3, I must know, what are your opinions on the Death Star chase?
My opinion has changed over time.
Okay.
Like, initially I thought it was one of the best sequences ever because of how the planning that went into it, when they're saying, okay, so we gotta get this one little point, which will explode everything with a proton blast, okay? So you gotta get it in that little pinprick, otherwise it won't work. And like, I'm kind of like, wow, that's genius. One hit and it's all gone? That's great. How are we gonna do it? And then you see all the parodies of it. And I'm just like, so my mind is convoluted with so many different renditions of that exact same plan. Yeah. That now when I watch it, I'm kind of like, that would never have worked. Unless you had a mystical, invisible force that guides your every movement to make it happen.
which I think is kind of one of the crazy things, because they don't hype up the fact that this should be an impossible shot to make.
Yeah, even Luke, though, mentioned during the briefing that, I used to make shots like this with the swamp rats or
It should have been the other way around.
Yeah, like, he's making it out to be no big deal. So I'm internalizing that perspective of saying, like, you guys are on this impossible mission, but this random farm boy kid thinks he can do it. Now, either A, he's super cocky for no good reason, or B, he's just that good, and why?
So, this is indicative of the biggest problem with this film when it was first shown to its test audience, aka Steven Spielberg. But it is also indicative of how it was fixed.
Okay.
So, George Lucas, the way that this originally was presented, the stakes were next to non-existent. And you can tell that the stakes were next to non-existent because Luke remarks that he can make the shot easily. Which, as we've just discussed, should be, like, impossible. It would be like asking a fighter pilot to hit my camera, and only my camera, from, I want to say, like, 5 blocks away.
Yeah.
They couldn't do it.
No.
The bullet isn't that large.
Yeah.
They could hit around it. The camera might get hit in the debris, but they would not actually be able to hit that thing unless, again, some unguided force was. So those stakes were not set. You know what other stakes weren't set? The Death Star was not about to blow up the Rebel base.
Exactly. It was just there. It followed them, but when it was there. Now they know where you are, but we didn't know what would happen.
No, as in the original cut, the Death Star was just where they left it. It never followed them.
Oh. Okay.
There was never anything that was saying, if they don't make this shot, everyone dies. So, the way that this was fixed, and anyone can go back and rewatch this, and also you could probably just look up, like, I believe the video is called, like, The Miracle of Editing Star Wars A New Hope or something along those lines. There's a couple wonderful video essays about this, but the way that it goes down is, if you rewatch that, every line that has to do with the Death Star approaching the Rebel base is voiceovered. Every shot, every line that Grand Moff Tarkin gives about them going up to it, you never see his mouth moving. You actually usually just see something on a screen. Okay. And it's always recycled footage from earlier in the film. So the entire time that they're firing that they're getting ready to fire the laser at, like, the brink point where Luke, like, shoots it in, that's just reused footage from when they destroyed Alderaan.
That's funny.
So, and then when you're in the Rebel base and Leia I might ruin the sequence for you now, because if you go and rewatch it, there's a bunch of times where Leia and C-3PO just look at each other randomly, and you're hearing voiceover about how they're getting close, it's going to be happening soon, and they're just looking back and forth between each other. And originally it was reaction shots to if Luke was shot down or not.
Okay.
But they just took those extra shots and placed it in over that. And then when you see the little screen about, like, oh, we're about to be inside of the planet, like, they're going to shoot us down soon, that's recycled from when they destroyed Alderaan again.
Wow.
The entire thing that Steven Spielberg saw was essentially they get back to the Rebel base and then they just go, we're going to kill 1 million people now, go to the Death Star, blow it up, and that's the end of the film. If you go back and rewatch it, all the evidence is there. The only thing that was originally in the stakes was that they did put a tracker on the ship, but they had just not caught up at that point. Okay. Because apparently the Death Star couldn't move very fast in the original. Interesting. That's the entirety of this film as far as, like, the actual pace and the way that the story was conveyed was entirely different, and we literally only have one woman to thank for that.
Wow.
Also, she fought tooth and nail with George Lucas to be able to actually do these edits originally, and eventually he relented, and we have what we have now. Unfortunately, he scrubbed her name from the credits when he re-edited it. We don't like that.
No, because that's her work.
It is her work. And with that, we'll be back in about 2 weeks to discuss Empire Strikes Back. We'll see how it goes on the Patreon. Maybe a little bit of different pacing. But as far as everything else is concerned, like, comment, subscribe. And hey, it's the return of the movie.
Hey, this is Ben. We hope you enjoyed that episode. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, keep an eye out on things. We're going to be posting on this channel again much more frequently than previous, so expect a lot more new content.